This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Always good to have G Bush on the video, man. G Bush straight out the video shoot. I didn't know he was doing R&B now. You know, hey, y'all didn't know he's not about to talk Browns. He's about to give us his confessions. You know what I mean?
Confessions. Listen.
Part 1 and 2.
Hopeless Romantic, Part 1 and 2 in stores now. You can get that on iTunes. You can catch that on Spotify, all your streaming sites.
I did talk him out of lighting candles in the background. I was like, hey, nah, that ain't flying.
Hey, listen, he's like, bro, you gotta put your jacket on, man. I got one of these, like, this is just a thermal underneath here, but it's fitted. It's a fitted thermal. You know what I'm saying?
You know what you remember the 4 minutes video by Avant? You dressed like him in that video right now.
The fact that you say Avant got sneaky stats. Like Avant is a slot receiver of R&B. Like he's not the first option.
He's people our ages. Like Kem, like you know how like if you go back and somebody don't know who Kem is, but like people of that era be like, oh yeah, Kem was there. We'd be like, yo, Avant was there, but people like
calling your name.
People who were born just 5 years after that, they have no idea what Avant is. They're like, what is this?
And then the next generation, it was Jay Holiday. Jay Holiday had 6.5 songs.
The Dream. Look, people will never understand the Dream's impact. They grow up in that era.
Me and Dream can't be in the same. See, me and Dream got the same type. Or like, I be hating like Dream. Like, man, you don't even need to be with him.
They don't know you don't get the weekend without the Dream. But that's our weekly lesson in R&B from our professor of R&B, G Bush, on the set today. G, Deshaun Watson's back, or at least he's supposed to be back today, this week versus Arizona. I think people are all over the place, man. Like people are debating whether it was a real injury to begin with. People are debating what should the expectations be. Have we lost the ability to just let it ride? Have we lost the ability to be like, hey man, let's see what happens, right? Like we got to all make predictions over what's going to happen. We have to all set expectations over what's going to happen. I'm just sitting here like, dog, I don't think anybody knows what to expect. I'm going to be honest with you. You ask Kevin, you ask Deshaun, like, we just going to see what happens. Like, I think this is a, hey, we can't know if it's 100% healthy unless he plays through it, right? Like, I
got to give you credit for it, though, dog. I got to give you credit. Listen, I was on every platform. I was up late couple of nights ago, and I saw your situation. You was like, you're never gonna know if Deshaun Watson is ready to play because of the adrenaline level. But what you can do, you can put him through a low-key pro day. And I was like, what the heck he talking about, man? I had to wait. Listen, you know how you be prefacing, setting it all up. He be setting it up. I was like, man, he's setting the hell out of this up. We're going to find out what this is. And then when you drop that number 2, I'll pause. And we dropped that number 2, I was like, whoa. I said, that's fire. I went to the set the very next day. I said, I text you. I said, yeah, I'm going to give you credit for this, but I'm taking that whole pro day scheme. I ran it one day. I ran it back with Tim Couch. I was like, but I thought that was super dope because I was like, yeah, like that's one way to get him to figure out if you could throw the football without, crumbling and falling apart. Put him through a low-key pro day. If he can get through that, we ready to go. I thought that was a brilliant move by you. But you hit the nail on the head. Bernie Kosar back in the day, I don't think we was going through all this. Like there wasn't that information. There wasn't a bunch of stuff on how he was. No one was watching the waiver.
There was no market to know every bit of information that came out of the football team back then, right?
None.
There was the newspaper and the sport. Like people forget, the sports section wasn't even like a daily thing back then. It was you would only get sports on Sundays. Like, especially like with the plain dealer. So it's like, hey man, once a week you get updated about the team. Maybe if you're a diehard, you listen to the stuff on the radio, but the stuff on the radio wasn't as in depth as it is now.
You didn't have 96 dudes with bloggers and writers and independent content out there.
Everybody with game film access.
Everybody got all 22. All 22 is just out there, just available. Like, but no, like I think one thing that you said is, bro, you're not gonna know what you're gonna get, man. And I think sometimes we got to tailor to what we thinking is you're gonna get from Deshaun Watson. He gave you one solid game, and let's be clear, like it's a Mandela effect a little bit. Like that one game against Tennessee, we remember it kind of different than what it was. Like at this point, people thinking that's 400 yards and about 3-4 touchdowns and about 2 touchdowns.
It depends on who you talk to, right? It's like either it was 400 yards and the greatest game ever played on God's green earth, or it was a real fluky 300 and he didn't even get the 300, G. He only got the 190, and it's not like he had 3 touchdowns, and it's like, brother, it was a good game. Like, it's so polarized. Like, people either feel like they gotta go all the way in one direction or the other. And I'm like, why? We have no evidence that this is going one direction or the other. Like, we don't know. We don't know what to do with that, man. Like, as I do this longer, I'm like, man, we really aren't equipped to just handle things that just don't have definite answers, because part of what people think our job is, even though I don't think it is, but people think our job is to give definitive answers. It's not. It's just to continue the conversation and continue your own conversation about the team. And it's like, sometimes there's stuff where I'm like, hey, bro, I don't know. And I'm not about to sit here and stand on a hill one direction or the other with it, because like I have no confidence one direction or the other on where this thing's gonna point. I'm just at the point where I'm like, hey, y'all prepare for both, right? If this goes well, you can prepare for that. If it doesn't, you can prepare for that. But it's an unknown at this point. Deshaun Watson is an unknown. I did this in my quarterback rankings. I put him in the X Factor category with Russ and Trevor Lawrence. Dudes, like, it could go either way. It could go either way, right? And this is where we're at. It's still it could go either way. And I think we all want the definitive answers, but you're just not going to get it. And even if let's say he comes back, plays well, this team gets to like the first round, gets bounced, people going to still have questions.
Oh, the questions is here.
Like the only result, like if you get past the first round, and let's say you beat a quality opponent, because I don't think people going to just like be like, oh, you beat like who's a team that might sneak into the playoffs? Like, let's say like Tennessee sneaks into the playoffs or something like that. Oh yeah, Jacksonville, right? Like, I don't think people are gonna give you all the credit in the world for that. But let's say you knock off a Cincinnati, a Buffalo, or Kansas City, right? And you get to the second round.
If you beat a Buffalo, right? Get to the second round. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
they're gonna
like,
give you some peace for that.
Then people are gonna be like, oh, okay, and get back on the excitement train, right?
Right.
But unless that happens, people are going to have questions about Deshaun Watson. That is okay. We don't have to defend every question that people have about him. But also, that does not mean that the opposite is true, right? Like, we can live in a world where we're just trying to figure it out with him right now. And it sucks that it's taking this long, but, it's the hand we dealt with. You can't sit here and complain about the hand you dealt with. At some point, you got to play it. And this is them trying to play it. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised, like in this game, if he goes like a quarter and to our eyes, nothing looks wrong. And Kevin's like, all right, well, we up 14. If it goes our way, we're going to throw PJ in there or something else like that. Or we're just going to run the ball. Like, I think this is more of a rehab start for Deshaun Watson than he's back full go. I know they said no limitations and all of that, but even if Kyler Murray plays, even if Deshaun plays, I don't expect him to go all out and have 80 pass attempts combined between the both of them. This is going to be a slow ramp up. Like, I really think that we should prepare ourselves for that. It doesn't mean that he's going to be awful, but if you're coming in here thinking he's going to throw for 300 yards, like, I would love to be wrong. I
wouldn't be totally mad if they said, look, all right, Deshaun, we up 17-0. It's like the second quarter, but hey, we're going to put PJ in. PJ get the rest of them two, like second quarter, third quarter. I wouldn't be mad. They go back to the bench and say, hey, DTR, come on in the fourth quarter. You dust yourself off a little bit. Show me something. Like, if they handled it like that, I wouldn't even be salty because, I mean, at this point, you gotta operate under the presumption that even if Deshaun Watson looks good or bad, He could come back the next game and still look good or bad. He could come back the next game and be hurt or injured, or he's straight. Like you're gonna have this over your club the rest of the year. So the better you are at handling the reps during practice and keeping guys ready to go and being nimble and being flexible is the better you're gonna be.
Yeah, and I will point to that Joe Burrow situation, right? Everybody had all the hot takes in the world about Joe Burrow. I'm not saying that Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow are the same person at all, but I am saying that this situation is kind of similar, right? Joe had to play through that calf injury. Like, he wasn't going to get any healthier not playing than he was playing. And it was just about like, hey, can Joe do enough with that calf injury to be decent and to not get re-injured, right? And Joe, he had some rough games in that patch. It was an up and down period. People were all on the Bengals' ass because they was 3-3 after 6 games. But you saw him after that bye week, and you're like, oh, he's through it. It was worth it to play him, right? Because not only is your season still alive because he still played through that, but now that's an 11-win team. Like, they're gonna win 11 games now. The way that they're playing. So if you're the Browns, this game right here, look, I hope Deshaun doesn't turn the ball over a ton. I hope he does enough to win the game, right? That's where the bar is for me. But where I'm going to call it, if I will call this game a success, if he finishes the game with no setbacks,
no coming on,
no need to get back on the injury report, right? Like, that's a success to me. It's like, hey, if you get out of this game for 4 quarters and he gets to have a normal week next week, and then that makes you feel a lot better about that. And then if he gets through Baltimore and, he plays however he plays, we're not expecting to win that game, even if he's back on his second start, maybe if he showed you some positive signs. But either way, you can deal with losing that game. You understand that. And then you get to that Pittsburgh game, another game that you thought you could win with PJ Walker. Like, you could probably win that with Deshaun. Just get through that game. And then we're looking at Denver, and now we can be like, hey, now we expect some uptick. Now we expect some consistency at the play. It's going to be
Has this changed what you think? Has this changed what you think the final record is going to be? Like,
they haven't really dropped any games that I thought that they would win.
Right.
For me too. They're about on pace. Like, I think maybe you could say that this whole fiasco cost you 1 game. I thought this would be an 11-win team. It's looking more like a 10. Like, 10 might be where they hit. If they get hot, and you never know when you can get hot again. Cincinnati fans were in the dirt, 1-3. Thought their season was done. And then they got hot. Shit changes fast, right? So if you get hot, I think you get to 11. But I think the cost of this whole thing, and it's a pretty low cost if you get out of it, is 1 loss. And I think that brings you down to like 10. So I think, if you're talking about winning the division, that's a little bit tough because
I think
Baltimore and Cincinnati look like they on different levels right now than you are.
And think about it. You can still salvage a little bit. Say, for instance, you take that L to Baltimore, right? Obviously Deshaun, he's still trying to figure out what he's doing. Say, for instance, for whatever reason, the Browns just play the Bengals well. If you get 2 from the Bengals and you lose 2 from the Ravens, okay, well, that's a little bit of a wash, right? The Ravens would win the division, but that still puts you in a really good position with the Bengals being the second team in the division. We're winning 2 from them. But I don't know if you could call that out now. But I see what you're saying. It's 11 or 10. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did beat the Bengals twice.
And I think one of those 2 teams are going to win 12. And at that point, your division record's not really that important.
Yeah.
Right? If somebody gets 12, you're not getting 12. Like, 12 is a dream. Okay? You're not getting 12 wins out this season. So, and I think it's very possible one of those 2 teams gets to 12. So, you're looking at wild card, but that's fine. Like, I'm not about to poo-poo a wild card season. They've had like 2.
Yeah, like
in existence. Yeah. So that's where my expectations reset. Like, at the beginning of the season, felt like you could be a division winner, but this probably took you out the division race, right? And this and the AFC North being good, Lamar Jackson looking like an MVP candidate, and then it looks like Joe Burrow about to get back onto that side of the tracks as well. So, hey, it's tough, but still a lot to salvage here in this season. And this is low-key still a dangerous team to play in the playoffs if this defense can get this act together better than what it's been the last 2 weeks. Now, we brought up a point here with that whole Deshaun Watson training camp thing. I want to just touch on it real quick, because can you explain to the audience the difference between 100% in practice and when you got that game adrenaline going? Like, I think Deshaun even brought this up last year when he was talking about cardio.
Yeah,
I thought I was ready, right? Because in practice I'd be ready, but then you play in the game and it's different. It's like if you've ever been in a fight or boxed, you know there's a difference between sparring and fighting, right? And
it's a market difference. It's just different. Like adrenaline, like a football adrenaline. Like you talk to most players, right? They say, "Do you miss playing the game?" No. You don't miss the weights. You don't miss none of that. You don't miss practice. You hate practice. You hate two-a-days. You hate camp. You don't really like watching film all that much, bro. Like for the most part, you don't like treatment. The only thing you like is there's a 2-hour window either on Saturday or Sunday where when you boil it down and you playing on the field, there is no feeling like it. It's like I compare it. It has to be kind of compared to like a flying, like the first time you fly in a Boeing 757 jet or something, like, or you doing something that's just it's very rare for people to get to that level, and when you do and you get to play, that adrenaline to get you through anything. Like whether it's how people partially tore ACLs and how people play games through concussions and break legs and still play. That adrenaline can get you through pretty much everything. Like in that moment, you're great. But there's a difference between getting to that moment and then, you talking about the difference between those reps and the reps you in practice. It's 2 times. Like you can't simulate. You just can't push
you
your body
just don't
to
throw
that.
the football as hard in practice that you do in the game, right? It's why one of the first things you see, there's 2 things you see at the beginning of every football season. I don't care what level it is, especially like at the lower levels. You see a lot of drop passes.
Yep.
And you see a lot of fumbles.
A lot of fumbles.
Because it ain't nothing that can prepare you for getting hit for real, okay? And even preseason hits ain't the same as like regular season hits. And that's the same reason why you see drop passes, because they throwing that thing a little harder than they was in OTAs, right? Yeah. Like it's a little harder to catch that ball. These are coming in there, right? It's just one of those things that pops up. But let's talk about the defense real quick, because I feel like we were debating so much about that 3rd and 3 play call that we collectively have kind of let the defense slide on something I felt like was egregious, which was that last possession. Because I don't know if you've gone back and watched it. They offered no resistance. And I understand they were put in a bad situation. I understand 3 turnovers. It's tough. I get it. But the defense is not some regular defense, right? We thought this was a really, really good defense. So we expect them to be able to stand up to tougher tests, especially more so than the offense. And I don't know. I watched that last drive, and I hope they understand that shit was embarrassing. Like, that drive was unacceptable on so many levels. You heard when Jim Schwartz got out here, I think he was kind of on a similar train to that, where he's like, yeah, that can't happen. Like they can't get down the field and they got down the field to the 15-yard line. They started at their own 40, 3 plays.
The tight end, a fan, I mean, he's done that to us a couple times, but you can always see and tell. Like I've been on the field when those things have happened, and it's just one of those things where it's a sudden change, and they tell you all the time, they drill that in your head, bro. That's why you run all them laps and you lift those weights and you talk about the 4th quarter and sudden change, what you need to do. And the situation with the Browns was they just did not answer the bell. They felt sorry for themselves. For the first a couple times this year, you could literally sit there saying like, oh man, you're feeling sorry for yourselves. And hey, it wasn't our fault that we didn't give this up. We had an opportunity to win this game, but yet and still there was a turnover, and they felt sorry for themselves. And you can see that. And that just can't happen. If you want to aspire to be more and you want to aspire to be great, they have to understand that the Browns offense is not going to be better than them all year. With Deshaun Watson, without Nick Chubb, without whatever the case you may want. you guys are gonna have to be the bell cow for what they do, right? You don't got a superstar on offense right now, and that's just to be truthful. There are no superstars on offense. Your receivers, your running backs, your quarterbacks, they're not superstars. You guys are gonna have to play lights out the rest of the year, and how far they're gonna go is how far the defense is willing to stop teams from playing. They got up to that challenge against the San Francisco 49ers because it's easy. They got challenged their manhood a little bit before the game. People was jumping around. They felt disrespected. You saw how they responded. But missed tackles down Gardner Minshew shaking his shoulders on you. Gardner Minshew doing this one. You can't let
the Michael Pittman on him. And then on this drive, that one play where it's like Sione Takitaki just falls asleep.
Yes.
Doesn't realize he's supposed to be in that area, doesn't carry anybody, and then loafs on the tackle.
Yep.
On the last drive of the game.
Letting guys just walk down the field.
Yeah, that's just nah. Like, I understand if people want to argue. It's like every time Kevin does something, people want to argue about whether he's good or not. And it's just like at a point to where I'm just over the whole conversation. But don't let that ignore what really happened in the end of that game, which is like, hey, man, PJ could have got that first down and you could have had to punt that ball after that 3 sets of downs and you still would have gave up that touchdown because that's what the defense was on, right? Like, they just weren't ready. And I don't think there's any excuse. You could say like the quick change. I know you're not saying that was an excuse,
no.
But to anybody who's going to offer, well, it was a quick change. It's the NFL. Like, what you got the most turnovers in the league. I'm sorry, you should be prepared to get on the field after a turnover.
You should already be
it happened on first down, right? Like, the drive gave you done had your meetings, you know what I mean, on the sideline. Coach still came and yelled at somebody. You need to do this. The called up to the booth, everything. Now you just standing there waiting to get back on. Like, that's not an excuse not to come out there. That's just a normal switch for you.
Cam Mitchell in the game. Get that, you get it, and you got a pick six. That's twice this year. You got a pick six in your hands, Cameron Mitchell. Pick that off, get up the far sideline, and that's game.
Yeah, you can't want to be the premier unit on this team and then act like the burden is too much when you get the burden, right? Like, if you want to be the leading scorer, I don't care. Like, let's put it like this. Let's say me and you hooping and G. Bush, the leading scorer, right? If G. Bush supposed to put up 30 and I put up what I'm expecting, I'll put up my 15 or whatever, you can't sit here and be like, well, Quincy only scored 15. No, you G. Bush, you supposed to score 30.
You're supposed to have 30, dog. What are you talking about?
You got the NIL deal. You supposed to get the 30. Like, you know.
You can't say I was sleepy. You can't say I got hit. So, yeah, I got hit for 25. But you know you're supposed to count on me for 30.
I don't care what Karis LeVert didn't do. If Donovan Mitchell had a bad shooting night, I'm going to talk about Donovan Mitchell, right? Because that's the one we expect more out of. Right. And it's like, at this point, we so obsessed with like arguing about the offense and PJ Walker and should we go get Jacoby Brissett that we like, yo, we just let this defense slide on some pretty egregious errors down the stretch that, quite frankly, in Indy, PJ Walker bailed you out of. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I could care less about how this offense looks. We know what they are right now. Like, they're at best. Like, we're hoping that they get to a point to where they're decent. Like, that's not who we expect more out of. But this defense, we expect way more out of. And I was shocked by the lack of conversation this week about this defense, given what has happened the last 2 weeks. And how we have still continued to have this whole thing kind of focus around a quarterback situation that we know is not ideal at this point. But I know we all got things to do. I'm going to let G get to his Usher concert. G about to be the flyest man at the Roller Reek.
Go get my album Athletic Big Boy in stores today.
It's going to be one of those.
I got Chris Brown.
Your face in shadows with a black background and a Jesus piece, right?
I got Tory Lanez before he got deported. He's on the album. And I got Shaggy on the album too, man. It's coming out in stores December 16th.
This album is problematic.
They like, man, you got a lot of Casper cases on here, right?
You want to tell it, son, G?
You got Chris Brown and Tory Lanez on there. I don't know.
Am I about to be under fire for having you on my show?
Right,
Quincy.
I
don't know.
You know, y'all. Listen, y'all got y'all stay above.
He heard he was putting Tory Lanez on his album and laughed.
Over here, like you got a lot of Canadian people that be like, no, hey Quincy, I don't know about this G. Bush guy. Have you done any homework on his past? I mean, it's Chris Brown and Tory Lanez on his album. I mean, who's next?
Oh, you added Chris Brown to the album?
I didn't say nothing about R. Kelly. I ain't have him.
All right. That's a wrap on the show for tonight.
I ain't say nothing about him.
Y'all catch G. Bush on UCSS, also on the Barbershop, also on 92.3 The Fan. My man got like 45 different jobs. He got to pay for that peacoat somehow. Y'all have a great day.
Peace.
Have an even better night.